Governor Siminalayi Fubara has resumed his duties as the governor of Rivers State after 6 months state of emergency declared by President Bola Tinubu, which expired on September 17, 2025. The emergency rule was imposed due to a constitutional impasse between Fubara and the House of Assembly, which led to a breakdown in governance. Fubara, along with Deputy Governor Ngozi and members of the Rivers State House of Assembly, resumed work today. Rear Admiral Ibok-Ete Ibas, the sole administrator of Rivers State, also handed over power to Fubara, now urging the people to support him in his leadership role. The question is, will this mark a new chapter in Rivers politics, or is it the beginning of the eclipse of the Sim Fubara era? This is the Eastern Eye. I am Alex Ogbodo. Welcome to the Eastern Eye, a program that X-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. Joining me tonight is Henry Ekine. He's a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining me tonight from the Garden City, Port Harcourt, Rivers State.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to join you this evening from the treasure base of the nation, the only garden city in Nigeria.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. Except you haven't been there, you wouldn't know what we're talking about. So finally, Sim Fubara is back as governor. Well, but did he at any point stop being the governor?
No, he never stopped being the governor. I had likened this to a school system where a student perhaps ran contrary to any of the rules of the school, and the student's suspension may be declared and then may stay on for a period, a stated period. That student does not cease to be a student of that school. That's a simple analogy. If student A was a student of a certain community school or a government school, and for whatever reason he was suspended, he remains a student of that school, but denied of certain privileges at the time, perhaps, but remains a student of that school, and that's why he could simply just come back. But it's, in any case, a removal or a suspension will amount to a denial or, yes, a deprivation of some regard in that sense. So Sim Fubara or any governor in that regard cannot be said to have ceased to be a governor. The only ways to cease to be a governor in Nigeria are extant in our constitution, and you cannot suspend the constitution or violate the constitution in a democratic regime, a constitutional democracy at that.
So do you think that with what has happened with the passage of time, 6 months, that's time enough for a child to develop a few milestones? And would you actually think that maybe some momentum has been lost on the part of Sim Fubara?
Yeah, absolutely. The governor is a human being. He may have come on when he was inaugurated on the 29th of May 2023 with some vigor, some high spirit, with his clear thought out plan to enhance the welfare of citizens and ensure the security of lives and property, which are the primary purposes of government. But unexpectedly, he was asked to step aside by some unconstitutional means and procedure, because there is no such thing as suspension of a governor in our constitution. Even in any of our legal instruments, no act of the National Assembly, no provision of our constitution provides for the suspension of a governor. So it came to him as a surprise, came to me as a constitutional scholar as a shock, as a surprise. I never expected this. So I believe that would have really created some kind of distraction or derailment in that sense of the governor. But I also would imagine that he would have expected that someday he was going to come back to office. And if he was determined to govern the people of Rivers State from the outset, then of course he has to just show that ability to reorganize himself, comport himself, adapt to the situation and reality, and of course work to still enhance the welfare of citizens and residents in Rivers State and ensure the security of lives and property.
Is it possible that now that he's returned to office, that he is, if you like, you can say that his Category 4 hurricane may have been whittled down to a tropical storm, with all the battles he's had to face, looking at the whole battle with the House of Assembly, the battle with Wike, and then the sucker punch of the state of emergency. Do you think that Rivers State are having their governor back, but not with the usual machismo and power that he used to exude?
Well, I think that I had seen in a governor in Siminalayi Fubara, whilst in office before the unconstitutional suspension, a man who had some demonstration of direction and understanding of what it really requires to be the chief executive officer of a state. So I would imagine that he will be able to consolidate that comportment to be able to still steer the ship. Whatever the unnecessary, avoidable, and orchestrated crisis had been, yes, indeed, as a human being, it really would have pressed down any determined individual. And to that extent, it came from all four. The State House of Assembly from one end, the Minister of the Federal Republic, there is no hiding the fact that it was coming from that end. And then the bigger hammer, or rather the biggest one, fell on him when he was suspended from office by the president without any power vested in the president anyway. I must reiterate that. So that indeed would have actually dissuaded anybody and probably even caused anyone to lose some focus and not to even pretend not to know that whilst they were having the discussions that may have led to this suspension of, or the lifting of the suspension rather, that there have been rumors that certain harsh, unimaginable conditions may have been stated and given to him in such a way that returning to office, he may not be able to actually act as the chief executive officer as the Constitution has envisaged. But I think for me in that regard, I will leave that within the realm of speculation and rumors until he begins to act up. If he had assumed office today, if he had addressed Rivers people, then I would have imagined from the tone of his address, and then if he had even also come back with his lieutenants, that is, for me, I'd imagine that he still has his cabinet, because when he was suspended, the ideal thing is that his cabinet was also suspended. Remember that he had his commissioners, he had his advisors, he had his staff, most of whom were even confirmed by the House of Assembly even before the unnecessary crisis. So he had all of these machinery around him. Coming back to office, one would imagine that he should be able to just hit the ground running. But with the rumors that have gone on, and with the speculation of some high-handedness and godfatherism, I would rather wait until he fully assumes office, whether tomorrow or any other day in the soonest time, and then we see the kind of appointments he will make, and whether he's going to return with his commissioners, whether he's returning with his chief of staff, and whether he's going to even be able to give directives and direction purely on the strength of the powers vested in him by the Constitution. And I tell you, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria vests certain exclusive powers to the governor and the governor alone. Clearly, Section 192 of the Constitution vests exclusive power on the governor to constitute cabinet, to determine the number of commissioners to constitute his cabinet, and then to determine who becomes a commissioner in the state and appoints such commissioners. Yes, subject to the confirmation of the House of Assembly. He has the exclusive power to cause to be laid before the House of Assembly an appropriation bill. So it means it's an exclusive executive function to prepare an appropriation bill, consult the respective departments, ministries, and agencies of government, and certain budget committees, and his cabinet. Consider that at executive meeting with his cabinet, and before he will present an appropriation bill before the House of Assembly. These are exclusive constitutional powers that are vested in the governor. We will see how he will perform these powers, these responsibilities, when he fully assumes office.
So let's talk about the issues around those conditions. A lot has been said. A lot of people are even saying that he doesn't have any powers now other than just being called the governor. The elections have happened at the local government level. The PDP has only about 3 seats there, 3 local government areas. So and now he's coming to walk into a structure that is basically alien to him. So at the end of the day, are we back to the reason why the crisis started in the first place, political structure?
Yes, political structure for me will really define to a large extent what direction that the administration, both in the executive and the legislature, will take on this return. But I dare say one thing. I had an opportunity to respond to a question as to how the governor is going to be able to steer the ship of the state, considering that the local government elections that, though controversial anyway, the controversial local government election that returned about 20 local government council in the All Progressives Congress and 3 to the People's Democratic Party. And I said that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, if we profess to be a society, a democratic society with the rule of law, and also profess to uphold the Constitution that they all swore to, then the local government councils have clear constitutional functions to perform. And those functions are not the functions of a governor of a state. And then the governor of a state has clear constitutional functions to perform. And then those functions are not intertwined with the functions of the local government councils. So at best, there are 2 tiers, different tiers of government. The one that even has an advantage is the governor. The governor has the entire state as its constituency. A governor of a state can actually go to any local government and execute a state project. But a local government chairman will stay within his territory. And a local government chairman cannot stop a governor from coming to his local government to execute a state function, a state program or project. So sometimes I think that what Nigerians have fallen in the trap of politicians in certain narratives, it is because it has become almost like a norm, even if it is not legal and constitutional, it almost appears to be the right thing. There is no business, if I were to become a governor of a state, between me and whoever aspires to be a chairman of a local government council. I cannot direct him. I am not expected to direct him in ways outside of the law. He cannot stop me from performing. He's not expected to constitute any nuisance or a clog in my administration as the chief executive officer. But you know what? Where this narrative derives is basically in the areas of finance, where in Nigeria today, the governors would want to get into the local government allocation, whether the federal allocation or the state allocation or internally generated revenue of the local government areas. It is only purely with respect to money that governors are concerned about who or what political party produces local government council chairman. So I would imagine that if the governor is strategic and he understands what policy drives that can transform his aspirations into reality, he can still work with his cabinet. He can still work with the legislature. If at all in any democratic institution, is the legislature that most of his his actions will come before the legislature for ratification or confirmation. But he doesn't need any authorization or ratification from the local government council to perform. It is rather even the local government council chairman at some point that we need to have to appear before the joint economic committee of the local government and the state government for the purpose of economic policies in the state. So I will imagine that if these players are mature and they were sure that they were competent to be leaders even at local government levels, then they will put aside whatever political differences they would have. So when the meetings are called for the state joint economic team or whatever committee it is, they would come with the clear objective to discuss the issues of their local government. It doesn't matter who is the governor, whether it's of a different political party. But I'm only being ideal here. I understand. It appears to be utopic, really. But I do not think that in the case of Rivers State, that Sim Fubara is going to have any serious problem. Not forgetting anyway that the marriage between the People's Democratic Party and the All Progressive Congress in Rivers State is an unholy one. Do not be deceived that the All Progressive Congress won 23 chairmanship too. Those chairmen, I know them, we know them. The evening before the election, they were members of the People's Democratic Party. You cannot tell me that certain local government chairmen that I know very well are stalwarts of the People's Democratic Party, but today are All Progressives Congress chairman. We know the motive. The motive is to show Mr. President that indeed Rivers State is All Progressives Congress, and that the Minister of the FCT can deliver Rivers State in 2027 for the All Progressives Congress. And then the People's Democratic Party, 3 seats or 3 council areas should even be an indictment to the minister, because the minister still holds on that is a member of the People's Democratic Party. But all of these political shenanigans, we understand, and maneuverings. But I think what is important for Siminalayi Fubara is to focus on governance and clear, progressive administration with well thought out policies and programs of governance.
Okay, so let's talk about the people of Rivers State, because at the heart and center of all this is how governance can come down and touch them. But as someone who's witnessed the emergency administrator for 6 months, how did it fare with Rivers people? Was it all uhuru? Was it an intervention that you relished?
In fact, the Book of Lamentation was rewritten in Rivers State, if you like, in the 6 months of the unconstitutional sole administrator's regime. It was like a period of lamentation in Rivers State. I'm not just speaking this. I think if you watch the pictures and the videos that showed up this morning and throughout the day, every part of Port Harcourt, even when the governor didn't seem to have been cited yet today, you will imagine that the people were living clearly under some kind of suppression and suppressive reality indeed. The 6 months have actually been a suffocating period in Rivers State. There hasn't been any form of development. I can tell you in real terms, forget the flamboyant rhetorics that may have come from political justifications. Now, projects, landmark projects that we are on, that had started without even speaking for Siminalayi's administration, projects that Rivers people across political parties, across ethnicities, across communities, and across local government cherished indeed, and really understood that they were going to transform the development of Rivers State and create a new landscape, really, have become like, in fact, they were stalled. Because some administrators didn't have any idea about those projects.
That's right.
He didn't have any understanding of those projects. He didn't have any commitment to those projects. He never made any promise to Rivers people. He never had the mandate of Rivers people. He rather had a mandate of Mr. President, and he had a clear-cut responsibility. Mr. President gave him a mandate just to come and ensure, in quotes, that there was absence of peace in Rivers State. So go and ensure there was peace. But even that one was questionable. What did he do? What was the crisis situation in Rivers State? So what was the strategy? What indeed can the media even report that the unconstitutional sole administrator really did to restore peace in Rivers State? That's one. But for administration, governance, and development, there was nothing. The sole administrator did not initiate or commence any project and concluded. I am not even aware of the promises that he made, any one of those that he kept. He came and reiterated the promise of reviving the Songhai farm, which was a landmark project in Rivers State, but he never took a step. He came and made a promise, he made a statement of maintaining or innovating or rehabilitating the edifice, the Rivers State Secretariat. But I'm not sure that the contractor has even been awarded. I am not sure any contractor, I drove there, no contractor had actually mobilized to site, and he had gone. So I was, and when he was leaving, he actually even made a statement that the achievement he recorded included local government elections. That's what he said, and that was for a purpose. For those of us who are here and as onward, we really knew the purpose for that controversial local government election. But he counted that as an achievement. And he also said he had restored peace. He didn't tell us any project he executed. He didn't tell us any other form of development he has brought, not in any sector, not in education, not in healthcare, not in infrastructure, not in human capital, not in even not sector at all. So for a 6 months period, we really have actually gone back into the incubator. In fact, for Rivers people, dreams indeed, like Zaid and Alkali have said, we are like babes, they were conceived. Most of our dreams were not born alive, they were not just aborted, but we are still born. So that's the practical situation any objective person will analyze for you in Rivers State. But looking forward, now he's gone. For whatever purpose he had come, and whatever purpose the president sent him to Rivers State, he said he has accomplished it. He may have accomplished to the satisfaction of the president and himself, his benefactor, but not to the satisfaction of Rivers people. And that's why you see the outpouring of Rivers people today on the streets, expecting the return of the governor to address them. Even without seeing the governor, they were highly elated and excited. All the media platforms in this country were present in Rivers State. They captured all the pictures and videos of the mammoth crowds of Rivers people. This is just within the cities. What the reactions would be and the flanks of the city of Port Harcourt in the local government, you would just imagine. The people are excited. Their governor has returned. The person to whom they gave mandate. If he was going to disappoint them, it should have been left for the people to accept him and express that dissatisfaction. So the period of state of emergency was an unfortunate one. It can never be forgotten by Rivers people. In our political development and history, this period of oppression that Bola Tinubu inflicted on Rivers people can never be forgotten.
So, I mean, with all the analysis now, because I've been listening to this, and I always wanted to know how Rivers people perceived their administration, or if you like, the emergency administration of Ibas. It's now gone. So what should the Rivers people look forward to here on out?
Yes, excellent. I think a whole lot of responsibility will have to rest on the governor, the House of Assembly, all of them, and even the judiciary. I had a response this morning, and I emphasized on upholding the rule of law, constitutionalism, and then deepening democracy. That's on the part of the stakeholders. I would expect, supposedly they say return of democracy to Rivers State, that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will be upheld by all parties. The provision of the Constitution with respect to Section 4, legislative powers and functions of Rivers State, clearly vested in the Rivers State House of Assembly, should be left for that institution of state. The Rivers State House of Assembly, without any undue interference by Mr. President or a minister of the Federal Republic, any minister in that regard, or even the governor himself, or any of the other organs of government, or any individual, any authority, but the elected members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. Let them carry out their primary responsibility and commit their blunders. They should be able to legislate for good governance in Rivers State. They should be able to oversight public expenditure and public fund, and then, of course, stay within their purview. That's one. Under Section 5 of the Constitution, the executive powers of Rivers State are vested in the governor, and the governor is clearly the chief executive officer as provided in our Constitution. All the exclusive powers that are vested in him by the Constitution should be left exercisable only by him, without undue external interference and influence, whether by Mr. President or Mr. Minister of the Federal Republic, whoever he may be, or even the legislature unduly, or the judiciary unduly, or any authority and any individual. So let the governor and his cabinet, willingly constituted by him, perform the executive functions, It's also let the judiciary be allowed without undue interference by the other organs of government and any authority or individual be allowed to independently adjudicate for Rivers State so that they will have the freedom to interrogate the actions of the executive in the attempt to enforce the laws made by the legislature and to execute projects and programs. Now, when this clear separation is observed by these stakeholders, but not forgetting that there may be areas where they will need to come and form strong synergy and then have clear collaboration, then they should do so in the best interest of the state. Therefore, the people as critical stakeholders, we should be able to watch these stakeholders and hold them accountable to the mandate we have given all of them, to the expectations and aspirations of Rivers people, to be accountable to us, to ensure that they continue to enhance the welfare of citizens, answer to all of our questions in all sectors. Children should go to school and through free access to education should be in real terms, not policy statements. Children should have access to health care. There should be housing for the people. There should be fiscal infrastructure. There should be employment. There should be clean environment and water. In fact, the provisions of our constitution under chapter 2 do not make justiciable, but should be the conscience of these leaders in such a way that these existential needs of Nigerians and residents in Rivers states must be met. So moving forward, all political differences by political stakeholders should be kept aside. This is not the time for politics in Rivers State. This is not the time to show might and power and strength. This is not the time to demonstrate who controls the structure of Rivers, political structure of Rivers State. Whether Nyesom Wike is the smartest politician in Nigeria, let him exhibit that his wits, that his expertise on the entire Nigerian polity as a minister of the Federal Republic by advising the president to run the state effectively and effectually, the Nigerian state, and allow the Rivers State to be run by the governor. At best, as a stakeholder and a statesman, he should advise the governor, but not to unduly interfere with the functions of the governor as provided in our constitution. The same should apply to the legislature. Even if he bought their forms, all of them, like he said earlier, even if they are answerable to him, but he should allow them to objectively legislate and make good laws, responsible and reasonable laws in a democratic society, as well as the judiciary, that the judges, even if those that were appointed by him, should be allowed to be independent. They should have their independent minds and adjudicate objectively. There should be uprightness and incorruptibility amongst our judges. These are our expectations. And there are a whole lot more.
All right. Great expectations, right? Coming off from a period of hard times. We'll be taking a break. When we return, we'll continue the conversation with Barrister Henry Ekine. Thank you. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Eastern Eye here on Afia TV, a program that x-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. I still have Henry Ekine. He's a legal practitioner joining us from Port Harcourt, Rivers State. So here we are. A new chapter has unveiled, but a lot of people are fearing that you now will have a governor who has a very different temperament. Maybe without the pushing and the kicking he had before. Are you maybe worried that maybe the Sim Fubara that came back will be a little more laid back and not want to hurt a fly at all?
That is that possibility, but like I said earlier, I think I understand that a lot is really expected to be a leader at that level. The ability to be able to understand the expectations of your followers. I think there are only a few persons who would want to influence the governor to be able to be one to be very careful. Yes, he would have learned his lessons. He alone is privy to what lessons he has learned. and then what new strategies is probably going to deploy in executing his responsibilities. But I will imagine that with wisdom, he may want to be very careful, but not being careful because he's afraid, because also for a leader to entertain unnecessary and unjustified fear will not be good for him. Weakness is not a good trait or a good characteristic of a good leader. So I would expect that Fubara moving forward will balance his experience, the lessons he has learned. He may be firm in some areas and may be subtle in some other areas. He may also want to check what advice he would be taking. He would also want to also examine what he's going to tolerate and what he's not going to tolerate. Even if at the time he never had an experience, he had tried to be a liberal and deliberately understanding and tolerant leader, he may be different this time. Not actually going offensive to the laws, but may want to be firmer and more decisive. And I think that should be one aspect that he should exhibit. Because I recall that at some point there are commentators who had actually undermined him and had said that the governor was too weak, he was too subtle, he was too tolerable and tolerant. It was just giving him seemingly to everything. There are persons who have said here in Rivers State that if they were the governor at the time, there are certain things would have happened and they would have probably gotten to this point. Maybe even Mr. President would have been very careful before he would consider about proclaiming a state of emergency in the state. But Sim Fubara was kind and subtle, and then they probably also took advantage of that. Otherwise, why would you be an ordinary citizen, ordinary in quotes, because a minister does not have immunity. A minister can be more powerful than a governor. But you're a minister who is ordinarily living under the governor, as the case may be, but you are almost directing affairs of the state. Some persons have said if they were the ones that were governor, that of course the minister would have imagined what step he was going to take if he was even going to come from Abuja to land in Port Harcourt before he would take such steps. But Sim Fubara has shown those characteristics. He has shown to be firm when it needed to be firm. He has also shown to be tolerant when he needed to be tolerant. And I believe that moving forward, he will have a mix of those traits, and they are good for a good leader. I think I will stay so to the best of my observation. The rest will be left to observe him too when it comes on fully, how he will dispose in its actions and in all of what he will be doing.
All right, I'm sure the Rivers people will be expecting a statewide broadcast, at least from Fubara. But let's talk about the Minister of the FCT. It looks like what will happen in Rivers between now and 2027 lies solely in his hands. It doesn't look like any other person has a say in Rivers State, and this is putting it mildly, isn't it?
Yes, that's what it looks, but that's not the reality. Because and if that becomes a reality, that is most unfortunate for democracy, not just in Rivers State, but in Nigeria, because the individual we're talking about is a minister of the Federal Republic. So whatever is his character, whatever is his composition, is not just exclusive to Rivers State. It means that we have a character in the Federal Republic that is not democratic. If we begin to talk about some strong individual who will be able to so exude such influence that whatever happens politically and democratically in Rivers State is just up to what he would direct, that would be unfortunate. Even if it seems to be so, but it's not so in real terms. You could see the human beings that turned out today, like I said earlier, they are just maybe those within Obiakpo and Port Harcourt. I'm not sure that they are, even if they are not enemies to the minister, but they may not be very friendly with his disposition lately. So it's been a deceit, really, that Nyesom Wike acts as though he is the almighty, ulterior, all-guarding superior and emperor in Rivers State, even if they give him that name. I respect him as a statesman. He's been all he's been in Rivers State. He's done a great job in Rivers State in developing the state as much as he could when he was governor. He was governor for 2 terms. that was the magnanimity of the people of Rivers State, not by his might, not by his strength. It wasn't by his wit, not by his smartness. There is no politician that's extremely smart if you don't have the people. Okay, even if the people are subservient to you, it still means that it is the people. It means that you still needed them. Even if they were slaves to you, even if you could control them, it means that there must be people for you to control to be able to get what you want. So I do not see any individual, not even Nyesom Wike, as a sole entity that will determine what will happen in Rivers State. He will try his best. That's his desire. That's what he expects to be, such a humongous Herculean leader that everybody and everything in Rivers State revolves around him. And for those who believe in him, we think that that is the reality. But I think that we will test everything. If we have a true electoral system and process, I would dare say that we will test everything through the ballot. But unfortunately, if Nyesom Wike truly finds himself in the position to be able to influence the electoral process and electoral system, then he will likely get that stronghold. And then those who believe in him with that strength will now conclude and say, oh yes, truly that's who he is. But I don't belong to that school of thought. I try to be a constitutional scholar.
Are you still there, Mr. Ekine?
And then uphold the rule of law, believing that the Electoral Act will determine what INEC and those who will control or influence INEC will say. If invariably what will be the outcome of election, which is most unfortunate.
So, I mean, the analysis is good, but let's put it in perspective. We've seen the enormous powers and influence that is currently being held by Nyesom Wike. Will he let Fubara be this time? That's the big question. Or are we going to see unending televised national interviews where every other person is wrong and he obviously knows how to sort out everything? Everyone is looking for his trouble and he's never looked for anyone's trouble. Is it going to be, are we going to see a new cycle? Or is he going to let Fubara be the governor this time?
Yes, Wike has the absolute decision as to whether he's going to let himself be or not let himself be. Because I would say himself here, because he has no choice to let the governor be. He has no choice to let the state be. We have seen enough. I would imagine that if Sim Fubara, a spokesperson who had resumed his responsibility and duty today, he would have spoken. But without speaking for Sim Fubara, but being one who is interested in the soul of the state, we would say in Rivers State now, let our brother and our son, he's the son of the state. He's not older than the state. The state is far older than he is. So we're not talking about Sim. Even if we talk about Sim Fubara, Sim Fubara is not about his age. It's like the father of the state at the moment. So he's as old as the state. He's as old as the oldest man in Rivers State. So Nyesom Wike does not have a choice to allow Sim Fubara be. He doesn't have a choice to allow the state be. Let us have peace. And let him allow the governor to run the state as he did for 8 years. If he wants to be a politician, he can continue to be a politician. If he wants to control and hold on to his structure, he should consolidate his structure. Nobody stops him from doing that. But it should not disturb the governor unduly. About his almost incessant media pallies, it is his choice. It's just unfortunate that we're in a society where a public office holder is using public funds to organize media chats, where you and I know how much it is to pay for the time that all the media platforms will connect to that unproductive media chat. Unproductive in the sense that what contribution has the media chat or the numerous media chats brought to the development of the Federal Capital Territory or enhance the administration of the Federal Capital Territory, which is the primary duty that the minister has at the moment. What contribution has the incessant numerous media chats brought to the development of Nigeria? But the media chart that I will believe could be paid by public fund creates an avenue or a platform for even the Minister of the Federal Republic to have or express his dissatisfaction and his quarrel with his perceived enemies. Who does that in this world? A minister or a member of cabinet in the UK or in Australia or even in Ghana will use public fund, presumably, to cast aspersion or exchange some kind of quarrels between him and discuss politics. And what about even work time? You are expected to be on duty or at work. We're not accountable to our offices and to our people. Otherwise, a public office holder is like a servant to the people. It's just like today, if I have a project and I have a site, everybody who works there, even if you have your rights, no doubt, but then you have a duty, an obligation to account for the time that I pay you as man hour, to account for every resource, every asset, every material that are provided for you. Let me tell you what I learned in public administration. I was taught that in bureaucracy and in public administration, it's expected in the ideal situation that public property and facilities, as much as possible, be separable from the private individual's property and facilities for the purpose of carrying out your public functions. That's one. Two, there is administration of development and then there is development of administration. What can we say that all of these media outings have contributed to the development of administration in the Federal Capital Territory in Nigeria, or contributed to the administration of development in the Federal Capital Territory or in Nigeria? So it's his choice, and it's the choice of Mr. President, it's the choice of the agencies of government, whether it's Servicom, whether it's the ICPC, all the institutions of government, to check how public officers are performing their duties maximally, effectually and effectively, and how they are utilizing and applying public resources in performing their duties or serving their self-interest. I understand in private sector that there is something they call conflict of interest. You cannot exploit the opportunity you have by virtue of the office you occupy and use the resources of state to exploit your explore your private interest, and use that opportunity to castigate people that are your enemies, or use that opportunity to attack people, or use that opportunity to enhance your political frontiers, maybe doing some kind of campaign for yourself and your political party. This time is governance. You are no longer running the People's Democratic Party or the All Progressives Congress. You are a minister of the Federal Republic, and the Federal Republic belongs to all the political parties and all citizens. So if you're there as a minister of the Federal Republic, not a minister of the PDP or of the APC or of the mandate of Mr. President. But that's the reality in Nigeria. You elect somebody from a political platform and he goes there and even using state facilities to host party officials and party of functions. It happens in Nigeria. But if we have a responsible society and state, you should not. If I were a governor today and I want to meet with members of my political party and discuss party affairs, why should they come to banquet hall in government house or come to council chambers in government house? So what will happen to the other political parties that were unable to produce the governor? You are taking advantage of the fact that you are governor, and then there is conflict of interest indeed.
So, I mean, just one more thing before we wrap up this conversation. A lot of people are saying that there are a lot of stringent conditions were given to Sim Fubara for his return, if you like, for his second coming. And this would mean that part of that will be that he will not be seeking re-election the way it is. Are you hearing that in Rivers? Is that in the streets and in the ears of people in Rivers that Fubara will most likely be a one-term governor? And do you see him keeping to that agreement if he signed it or if he agreed to it?
Well, there has been an imaginary agreement this second time that led to this.
Are you still there, Mr. Ekine?
In fact, yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
I lost you for a second there.
Yes, I said there has been this imaginary terms of agreement. I say imaginary because the other time there was some 8-point directive which was made public and it was available. I had a copy and we analyzed that. I christened that even as the directive of Mr. President, the imposition, the Abuja imposition. But this time, I am not sure that anybody will clearly say that is privy to any term or any condition given to the governor of Rivers State that led to this, if you like, some peace that they have broken. But like you asked, it's been on the streets, it's been in the ears, it's been in buses and in taxis and discussions. But I don't thrive on such speculations. I have heard that. I have heard the one term, but I think it's until the governor comes on and he begins to speak that is going to stop at a one term, then I would imagine I would then flash back and say, oh, could it be what rumored at the time from the grapevine that it was a condition for him to return? Or again, if he comes back, like I said, and he dissolves his cabinet and constitutes or sends a new list of commissioner nominees to the House of Assembly, and we know ourselves in Rivers State, and we say that that list is probably of all the supporters of Yes of Wike, then we would take the second point. So they actually gave this man the condition that he should just come and be a rubber stamp governor in quotes. Or we see his actions and his directives and even the way he will relate with the legislature. So while that should be awaited, I think at best we should say those are rumors that have come on, but there is no concrete reality behind those rumors yet. Even when they spoke and addressed the media the other time, I remember I heard the minister, he said at that time that this time they were not going to let anybody know what the terms of their discussions were, because the other time they did, but at this time they were not going to do so. So I do not think that, and I wouldn't even believe that those will be the conditions at this time if Mr. President, of the integrity that he professes to have, will be a mediator in that second opportunity, that second missionary journey, so to speak, to broker peace between the parties at that time, because they came out from Mr. President's office and Mr. President addressed to that effect. If Mr. President did was such a one-sided mediator, then he wasn't a third-party neutral. Then he would have been a person who was one-sided, wasn't a mediator, because the qualities and the characters of a mediator would have been lost in Mr. President. So I hold this one in great favor. I hold this in great favor of Mr. President. I make a presumption in his favor that he was fair and just and on the balance in that meeting, that he would not have accepted such one-sided directive. Because if he takes these powers away from the governor, what else is left with him? That the minister was going to decide who becomes his commissioner, when Section 192 vests exclusive power of the governor to appoint commissioners, or you are going to direct the governor as to what projects he will execute, or the manner he's going to execute them, or the way we heard earlier before the crisis broke, that even before the governor would take a step, that there were some persons who could be in a meeting with him, and they would tell him frontally, Oga has not directed in that manner. Should we hear that again? That would be most unfortunate. Then it means that the crisis is not over yet. Then it means that there's going to be another round of the crisis. And who knows how that is going to snowball, and then whether it's going to be the explosion that will be worse than Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Mm. And I guess that we'll have to hope and pray that it will be rivers of joy here on out.
Indeed.
Yeah. I have to thank you so much, Henry Ekine, legal practitioner, of course, constitutional lawyer and human rights activist and public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your perspectives on the Eastern Eye tonight.
And thank you very much. My pleasure to be on the Eastern Eye, and indeed, a bright eye at that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
And that's the Eastern Eye for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow we'll be here same time. My name is Alex Ogbodo. Good night.